Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Welcome back to my sacred sanctuary, Sanctuar Sacru. I want to make another video here. I made one earlier today with some very interesting developments with the Russians' new missiles and the Poseidon. The Poseidon being an unmanned maritime vehicle. Goes underneath the water with speeds of about 200 kilometers per hour and is a nuclear capable unmanned vehicle that could create tsunamis. Pokrovsk is surrounded and the Kupiansk are surrounded. Go and watch that video that I posted earlier today. In this video I will discuss what I think, and I claimed on a few occasions, an understanding. I think it's an understanding between the guys in charge of United States of America or the West and Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is in charge of Russia. Donald Trump, Starmer, Charles and other baboons are not in charge of the named whatever countries, Great Britain or England and America. That's my personal assessment of what's going on over here. So what happened here? I think it's an understanding between these guys, the two sides, which is Putin on one side and the other guys are whomever are in charge of the Anglo-Saxon world, and that is NATO will pull back out of Europe. All right, that's my claim. It's an understanding. But hey, that's what I conclude out of the NATO pulling back troops from Eastern Europe, from Romania, Bulgaria and other from the eastern flank. And this according to Romanian, I think his defense minister. I'm gonna cover that one. That's the first topic. Let me see what else I got. I got about 5 topics, but hey, I'm old and I forget. US pulling troops out of Europe. NATO nations defense chief. That's the Romanian guy. Then we have from the Ukrainians, NATO responds to US from US troops reduction on Europe's eastern flank. Remember, the Russians, they claim the root cause of Ukraine war is NATO's expansion towards then advancement. They come towards us, we're gonna smack you, back off. And the Russians said, if you remember, and if you don't, I will tell you what happened in 2021 when the Russians tried to get the NATO countries to sign a treaty providing the Russians with guarantees. One of them, the Russians' demands, was NATO should pull back. And the guys were like, ha, 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 ha. Well, it seems like this is the same thing as the Cuban Missile Crisis. When Khrushchev told JFK, get your nuclear Jupiter missiles out of Turkey and we are going to stop building our nuclear facilities and bring the missiles in Cuba. And exactly what happened. The guys took them 6 months after the Soviets said we stop. Let me just take care of that fire a little bit. I'm gonna see my butt here. Not a big fire, but it's good enough. It's very windy. Come on, do something about it. 2 things here, always, okay? And here is my binoculars in case I need to see something. This is falling apart. What did you expect? All right, let's go back to where we were, right? So, where were we? Next one, European Commission. Reduction of US military presence will not affect EU defense projects. What does it mean? Well, we're going to arm you with our missiles that you can use only when we allow you. So basically the Americans are telling the embassies in Europe, how should I put it directly? I'm going to pull my troops back. You're going to push your troops in. You're going to use my weapons that only I can activate. So your military can use our air defense systems, our airplanes, only if we allow you, but you're gonna be in the harm's way. Like the Ukrainians right now in Ukraine, correct? US scales back military presence in Eastern Europe. Why is that? Is that the understanding? I'm waiting for them to, or for the other shoe to fall. Now, this is the inferiority complex coming from small entities. Be very wary when you have a, let's say, a person that you knew in school and who was always picked on by stronger guys, evil guys sometimes, but nevertheless stronger, and they got picked by this persons. When that person, the guy who was picked as in high school or whatever, the weirdos, right, the people at the fringe, and then they turn, they identify as something else, or maybe they become something else, you know what I mean? You know, okay, when these guys come and they get a position of power, they will attack mainly the strong, whatever they perceive, and they are, the strong guys who they, in their little hearts or balls that don't have anymore, perceive as paying back to those guys. They will hate them. Like, for instance, with women with daddy issues. Avoid that. Why? Daddy issues, that means they, the women, will apply their hatred to their fathers, yeah, there are some like that, towards the husbands. And the husband who would dare to stay with this kind of women will stay with them only if they are weak. That's why they can apply that. Remember, in society, when you have a supervisor, female, and she has a big problem with male, ask her about her father and you're going to find out. So we have here Belgium. Sorry, I can talk about that a lot because I know a lot, okay? So here it is. You can say I'm bragging. I can make videos on that. Anyway, that's not the point here. Let's go turn to the geopolitics. But why did I start this? I introduced this topic like that because we have Belgium. Belgium, if you remember, at one point in history, it had colonies in Africa. Belgium, yeah. Leopold, remember Leopold II, I think it was, you know, cutting the heads off and all that. Nevertheless, at one point, even Belgium, that now is a piece of nothing, all right, dreams of past, how do you call it, past honor or whatever it was, like the Poles right now. The Poles right now, they dream of their 15, 16 century, maybe 17 too. But anyway, they were dismantled in 1794 or something like this. Until the end of the First World War, there was no Poland on the map. They were gone. So they dream of the same, oh my God, we have this how do you call it, Sovietsky and all these guys. They're long gone. You need balls, you need a society. And the Poles have balls. The problem is they're used. You need not only balls, you need something else. But if you depend on the Brits, you have balls, they're gonna use you to use your balls be broken by the Russians. So we have the Belgian defense minister. Belgian, no country, small, insignificant. Belgian defense minister says Moscow will be wiped off the map if NATO is attacked. And Russia responds to that. So this guy, this is the same thing as I always say in a gang. In a gang, you have the guy in charge, really the big boss. And the big boss has big balls, okay? And then you have the lieutenants around this guy, the generals, but they're not the same. They want to take over at one point, but they are tough. And then you have the lieutenants, and then you got the rank and file, and then you have the Belgians. You have the provocateurs. That's what they are. The instigators, the ones that, hey, he called you a big blah, 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 blah. Oh, you got me? That's what they are. This is Belgium. Belgium now is part of NATO. And it's going to use NATO as the Baltic states. The Baltic states, shitty countries, 3 of them, with a total population. Why shitty? In terms of military and economic and human power, they are shitty. They're zero. 6.1 million people, 3 countries. Go figure. Now you can say, well, Switzerland, or whatever you might say, in Europe. Switzerland, you need 1 Oreshnik. That's it. You're gone. So again, I'm not here to take a shit on Switzerland. After all, all right. So what do we do? Doesn't mean that I have this Breitling means that I love the Swiss. But I had some friends in Switzerland through Kyokushin, and they have automatic weapons at home. Every adult has training, automatic grade weapons, not like these guys here, bolt, chick chick, and boo 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 boo. No, that kind of weapons. Okay, so why? I don't know. Ask them. I guess they're more free than us. Or let's ask the what's his name, the Israelis. They have automatic weapons, not the fork by fork, you know, semi-auto or bolt action, boom, boom. I'm gonna hit a deer, boom, boom. But I'm gonna fight the government. You're not gonna fight the government. Anyway, so this guy thinks that he's gonna, in the name of NATO, he's gonna challenge the Russians. The same with the Baltic states. They have big mouth. Yeah, we should do this. We should do that. That is, United States should do that. United States should do that. What are you gonna bring on the table? I tell you what they're gonna bring on the table. The only thing that Baltic states can bring is a geopolitical position. That's all. That is the land next to Russia and Kaliningrad. That's all they're gonna bring. Everything else is zero. Non-existent. The same with the Belgians. But the Belgians have a big mouth. Then we find out that 2 Polish men detained for tearing down Ukrainian flag from consulate building. They did it about 4 times already. And it seems like some coffee. Cheers. All right. It seems like the Poles are fed up with this. Then we have Tucker Carlson. I would say Johnny come lately. I like Tucker Carlson, but I think he is not fully committed to exposing, I think he knows it, exposing who's behind the United States of America and what's going on. He hasn't, he improved since he's been working, I don't know, CNN, wherever he worked the first times, and then at Fox News. He improved telling the truth, and then he got sidetracked, hijacked, whatever you want to call it. Like, for instance, Cuomo. I'm not putting Chris Cuomo with Tucker or Kelly, Megyn Kelly, or that imbecile O'Reilly to the level of Tucker Carlson. But Tucker Carlson could tell much more because he knows much more. His father actually was in CIA, so I think he still has some connections. And that's it. He says Europe destroying itself by backing Kiev, Tucker Carlson. But he would not dare to make the connection between why. Who destroys Europe? Destroys itself? Must be some people over there who destroy Europe. Who are they? What groups are there? He's not going to touch that, and I'm guessing Ukraine will never retake lost territories. NATO members defense chief. Well, we knew this one, didn't we? We're going to discuss that too. And India suspends new orders for Russian oil. So these are the today's video's topics. So let's go with the first one. With the NATO leaving Eastern Europe. In 2021, when the Russians told these baboons in NATO, don't go in Ukraine, let's talk about Ukraine, let's solve Ukraine, let's solve Donbass, let's make that as an autonomous province within Ukraine and so on. The NATO country says, we don't going to talk to you. What are you going to do about it? And Putin said, well, I'm going to go in and solve the problem, defend and protect the Russian-speaking ethnic Russians living in Ukraine. That the Kiev regime is massacring at this time with your weapons. And the 12 CIA bases in Ukraine and so on, trainers, and we can't accept that. NATO said, beat it. One of these demands from Russia was this: NATO should retreat, back the fuck off. If you want NATO to be at the where it was before the Warsaw Pact dismantled, that's okay. But let's go back to where you promised. No expansion of NATO 1 inch eastward. Remember James Baker? There was the Secretary of State of the United States of America. He was American Baker, was he? Or he was a tribes guy? Or a baboon, or what do you call it? The bazaar guy. Was he? No, I think he was a Anglo-Saxon, whatever his origin was. Nevertheless, maybe German. So he told then Shevardnadze, the foreign minister of Soviet Union, and Gorbachev, the president, if you want, of the Soviet Union, if Soviet Union agrees with the unification of Germany, Germany, West Germany together, there will be no NATO expansion. They lied. This is what the Russians are very sour about, and they knew they lied. They knew, and I say, did we sign anything? Oh, okay. So next time when you have, let's say, the neighbor, and you ask the neighbor for something, he's going to say, let's sign it. Or a friend. Remember, after the fall of Berlin Wall, we're supposed to be friends. No, no, no. There's never been anything like that. It's about interest. So, US pulling troops out of Europe, NATO nations defense chief, that's a Romanian guy. So, the Russians demanded Russia's pull back. And I think that's exactly what Trump is doing. Washington has informed black members it is shifting its focus to Asia. Romania's Ionuț Moșteanu has said, the United States is scaling back military presence in Europe as part of a broader strategy shift, Romania's defense minister announced on Wednesday. He was allowed to do that. But do you think the Romanians already have got balls? I don't think so. Some of them do. All right, I'm not Romanian. European NATO members were informed that US will focus on the Indo-Pacific region, that is China. So one time, I think it was Lavrov of Putin said, whatever the Americans touch, they turn into rubble. And talking about the Middle East, about Syria, about Iraq, about Afghanistan, about Libya, about, they want Iran in the name of, the bazaar people. So that's what it is. Now they shift after they destroy now in Ukraine. They're going to go now, it's time for China and for North Korea. The problem is those guys, I think, North Korea will not have any patience with the Americans. I guarantee you now, especially when they have this strategic partnership with Russia. European NATO members were informed. The minister said Bucharest learned of the US decision on Monday, but it was not a disaster for the Eastern European nation's security. The Pentagon is to pull out roughly half of the 2,000 troops it currently has in Romania. 800 they will have. The unit affected by the change has elements stations in Bulgaria, Hungary and Slovakia as well. Other nations such as France will continue their deployments. That means occupation. Why? Then the Romanians should also have troops in France. Have you heard of any? No. Therefore, you're under occupation. Do you think these guys are allies? Stop thinking there's alliances and they're equal. NATO is an organization. No, NATO is the US organization, club, is the US's, gang, with everybody else, as I explained. The lieutenants, the instigators, the generals, the rank and file. That's how they are. So don't think these guys have, when the US comes in the room and says, we are going to do this, everybody is going to say, yes, there's going to be zero opposition. Let's imagine Romania will come into room and says, we are going to do this, NATO's going to do this. This guy's going to be like, did you drink a Tsuika today? What the fuck is going on with you, John? Or Jon? All right. Remember, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia. I want you to look over the map and see where those guys are. All right. So what do we have here? The US and Western European nations bolstered military forces along Russia's borders as tensions grew following the 2014 armed coup in Kiev. Correct. And that gets you back to what the Russian says in 2021. You need to go back while we are at it. Ukrinform. These are the Ukrainians. NATO response to US troops reduction on Europe's eastern flank. NATO and US authorities are in close contact regarding troop deployments after Romania's Minister of Defense announced that allies have been informed of US plans to reduce the number of troop stations on Europe's eastern flank. Well, I want to see when the Romanians will be deployed in the NATO's western flank, which is California, Oregon, and the state of Washington, or in Canada. NATO and the US authorities are in close contact about our overall posture to ensure NATO retains our robust capability to deter and defend. The US authorities informed NATO of this adjustment in advance. Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying these guys are moving out. Why? Maybe it was an understanding between these guys. And here you have Ukrinform again. European Commission says reduction of US military presence will not affect European Union defense projects. What? We're going to keep buying your weapons. It doesn't matter if you leave. We are going to buy your weapons and we're going to deploy our baboons with your weapons to defend us at your orders. Who do you think will be in charge of the European, let's say, NATO forces? An American. The Americans are in charge, not the Germans, not the French, not the British, no, or Romanians. It's going to be the Americans. It's like you have a, how should I fucking put it? Like in Ukraine, you have a bazaar guy in charge of the Ukrainian nations. The Ukrainian nation is dying for the bazaar guy's interest from you know where. The same here. The Americans will solve their problem, not the United States of America, the interest behind the United States of America will solve their problems with other people's sons and daughters. So if it's no problem, then why do you have troops over there? It's going to be a shifting. You will see. Of course, we take note of this announcement. It does not change, to be very clear, our plans when it comes to the defense roadmap that we have presented. No, you were presented by the Americans. You didn't present shit. You just said, yes, how much do we need to buy? Oh, 800 billion. Exactly. All right. So what's going on here? U.S. scales back military presence in Eastern Europe, according to New Voice of Ukraine. 800 troops from Romania and reduces its military presence in Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Hungary. All right, we beat this dead horse too long. Let's go to the Belgian guy with an inferiority complex as the Baltic states. Belgian defense minister says Moscow will be wiped off the map if NATO is attacked. Russia responds. Will Belgium wipe Moscow off the map? I'm listening intensely. Will it? No, of course not. But it's the big mouth. It's not the Americans saying that. Who could? It's the Belgians. Man, jackals. And this is the face of the jackal right there. All right. Following Belgian Defense Minister Theo Franken declaration that, and I'm quoting, Moscow will be wiped off the map if Kremlin ruler, president for you, Vladimir Putin decides to attack a NATO capital such as Brussels. The Russian embassy in Belgium has issued statement calling Franken's remarks irresponsible. Not only irresponsible, inferiority complex. Now he's got the big boy over there, the US, and he thinks he's going to be talking tough. Exactly what this garbage is doing. Why don't you go and fight the Russians yourself, Belgium? You know exactly why. Franken in an interview with a Belgian newspaper. And this is what he says. Asked whether he fears that Putin might one day launch a non-nuclear missile on Brussels, Franken replied, nah, because then he will be striking at the heart of NATO and we will wipe Moscow off the map. And this is what the Russian says. Franken's adventurism is regrettably and an embodiment of a militarist deviation that is gaining ever more momentum in European party now. What do you want, my friends? That's the way it is. So this guy says, we're going to wipe it. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think is going to happen next? Now you can say, well, I mean, you see, Brussels is in Belgium. Okay, then let the Belgians fight the Russians. But hey, 2 Polish men detained for tearing down Ukrainian flag from consulate building. Polish law enforcement officers have detained 2 local men who tore down the Ukrainian flag from the building of Ukraine honorary consulate in the city of Przemysl in Poland on Sunday, 26th of October. I think it was like 4 times. And they said they arrested the guys. But why would they do that? Well, they don't like diversity, I guess. Well, it's too much, my friends, too much. Too much and too many at one point. When you want to change something, you have to go small steps, not big steps. Oh, you're dead? Not big steps.